Okay.
You to it. Give me a shout when it looks like it's going wrong.
Perfect.
But you should see numbers going up on there and things happening on there.
Okay.
If you want to put the headphones in,
Just
to make
checking.
sure you
Okay, cool.
but you don't have to keep on the whole time if you don't want to.
Okay. Are we being filmed or not?
Nope, no cameras.
Are you a headphone
Good
person?
old-fashioned podcasting.
Great.
Oh, you've got the shirt. That's awesome.
Yeah, some fan made me just
That's really nice.
say something like flame. Something like guilty feminist. I think it's kind of hashtag flame. The Spontaneity Shop presents The Guilty Feminist Watchers and Just Like That, the Sex and the City Reheal, with me, Deborah Frances-White, and my very special guest, Bec Hill. Season 3, Episode 5, Under the Table. Hello, Bec Hill. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Deborah.
I am so delighted to have you on the show. I enjoyed this week's episode of And Just Like That. And regular listeners will know I consider Sex and the City family, and therefore I'm able to criticise it, and have found heavy work of some of the episodes overall and the most recent ones. But I've enjoyed this one. What are you feeling generally about the series and this episode?
Oh gosh. Okay. This episode I thought worked because they put some stakes in there. Just small ones, but some stakes. And they also tied together something which they've not been doing properly. They do so many red herrings in this. There's so many things they plant and then never water. Yeah, exactly. And then finally they went, oh, you remember that thing that happened in another episode? We're going to refer to that now.
There was a reason to watch that.
Yeah, there's been some thought put into this. So I appreciate that. It does feel a little bit like when someone does the bare minimum. And then you're like, oh, finally you understand. And then you're like, oh no, this is...
Absolutely. This is not a classic episode of Sex and the City by any means, but it felt like it had more of the elements and there was some charm to it. I should do the recap.
Yes,
because
please
some
do.
people listen to this to find out what happened.
Yes.
And other people will have seen it a few days ago and will think, which one are you talking about?
I do not blame anyone who has decided to listen to this instead of watching it.
All right. So in this episode, Carrie irritates her new dishy downstairs neighbour by running in heels in her apartment. But those boots are made for flirting, and after Duncan the neighbour sets fire to his casserole and Carrie shows him these boots are made for stomping out arson, the two of them end up in a candlelit restaurant, waxing lyrical about writing and that other great aphrodisiac, Margaret Thatcher. And when Carrie gets home, she symbolically takes her shoes off for him. Miranda, annoyed by a neighbour of her own, moves in with Carrie and they find they're too old to share. For no reason except Carrie has got in no extra groceries and neither of them have ever heard of Uber Eats. And Miranda, who used to err on the side of prudish, is apparently super cool walking around the apartment naked in just socks and isn't like, oh, sorry, when she gets caught. Charlotte has clearly complained she only has comic relief storylines, so she's been cursed with her husband getting prostate cancer and being sworn to secrecy about it, which is worse because she can't tell anyone. On the upside, she finally steps up as a mother and tells both Lily and Rock not to be such damn brats and suck up a weekend of glamping with the Wexlers. To be fair to Lily and Rock, that does sound like a snooty designer weekend in hell. The Wexler children are insufferable. Mummy, this croque monsieur is the best one I've had since I was at the George Sank in Paris. Don't use Wikipedia. Mummy says it's not a primary source. Good Lord, children. Why are you making the viewers of And Just Like That want to bully you? Lisa Wexler and her husband Bill, who are responsible for said children, are bickering in their glam tent, and the underlying source of that tension might be that Lisa's got a crush on her undeniably sexy editor Marion, who Bill Wexler describes as Michael B. Handsome. Meanwhile, Seema, after a lifetime of being a well-paid high-end realtor with a permanent chauffeur, doesn't seem to have enough money to rent an office for a few months. One wonders why she left her job and how she had such ambition to go out alone if she didn't have a cot to kiss in. And she can't get a bank loan either, so she does what you'd do. She goes to smoke with a hot gardener with the hope of getting laid in one of his flower beds. And that is what happened on And Just Like That. this week.
Good recap.
One thing we do in this podcast now is we play Rewriter's Room.
Which I love.
How we would rewrite it. And I have got one of those.
Good, because I was thinking about it. And then
Yes.
I was like, none of this is going to be as good as what Deborah's come up with.
No, that's not true. That's not true. But we can have a little play of that. I think after we've analysed some of what we've already got. So the opening.
Can I just say, by the way, I'm 100% on board with the whole and just like that should have been Carrie realising that Big was like on the brink of bankruptcy and having to work her way up again.
There's been so many booms and busts
100%
since the show.
And they could have still had all the fashions and everything. They were managing it before.
Yeah.
She could have still been getting given things from designers and stuff like that. We could have still got some of the extravagance from Charlotte and all of those storylines.
But also, she's a successful author, a best-selling author. She'd have money, just maybe not enough money for an enormous house and, this absurd lifestyle that she has now. But for me, I'd rather see her like doing it hard on her own and grieving, even listen, she's a best-selling author. I'm sure she's fine. But if she just hadn't been gifted like such financial wealth, if there'd been a more reasonable amount of money left over and she had to move back to her own place or a smaller place, I think I would have been happier. But it is what it is. We've got what we've got.
I'd be interested to see if they bring any of the grief back, even momentarily this season. Just at least one moment where she's just a bit teary and someone goes, "You're right." And she goes, "I was just thinking about Big." And that's it. But like, because that's what happens with grief.
It's true. It comes
back
in waves.
Exactly.
Yeah. I personally, you're right, and I have seen people say it, but I was so bummed out by seasons of grieving. There were 2 seasons effectively of grieving. And there must be shows about grieving. There should be shows about grieving.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that's why I tuned into Sex and the City. I tuned into the Sex and the City for fun, for romance, for sex, for shoes, for laughs, for female friendship. And it was a lot of that. But you're right. Well, moment of it doesn't hurt.
Her grief would have been so much more like, not to say that needs to be, but can you imagine the complexity if she also realised that he'd made some bum deals?
Yeah. And never told her.
And not told her. Because then that, again, is a very realistic thing. Most people aren't just set up afterwards. Like, there are complexities that happen afterwards. Again, anyway.
I agree. I think they just decided, let's give everyone the full fantasy of imagine being able to buy any. Well, I thought it was a house, but now it turns out that it's more like a multi-story apartment with a basement. I guess you can have a house with a basement flat.
And she shares the garden with the down. I don't understand.
Which we'd never heard of before.
No.
And you'd think you'd know.
And you wouldn't be able to do things to it unless you owned it.
Well, she does own the garden, I think. I think she's the landlord, or the basement flat's owned, but she's happy to have him come into the garden. I don't really understand. I have seen people going, I'm sorry, as somebody who owns a flat, I'm going to need to know more about what the arrangements are. Yeah,
because in the last episode, when the Brits came to visit with Joy, they called it a flat. And I was like, nah.
Yeah, I thought it was a house. I thought the whole thing was she had a townhouse now.
Yeah, I don't care if you don't have access to the lower level. That's a house.
Yeah, I know people who have houses and they didn't own the basement flat. Like that there's someone living underneath them. That's very typical of London.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to own a house, to be honest. So here we are. We've got the opening, which is Carrie opens her windows and she has this internal novel writing about the woman, the Victorian woman who opened her windows and heard the horses and carriages. And then she sees a handsome stranger moving into the basement flat, which apparently Seema told her about, but she couldn't remember. And then we hear these boots are made for walking, and we see her running through her flat in a number of outfits. We mostly just see the shoes and the dresses. I enjoyed this opening, Bec, because I felt like, this is like old Sex and the City, where I'm seeing a bunch of shoes before anything that's happened that's quite joyful. But I'm also seeing the impact of that. I know why I'm watching it. The dramatic purpose is she's annoying a neighbour and she hasn't thought about that. She hasn't realised.
I thought it was very funny, the reveal that like all this time she's been doing that and not realising.
Yes.
Like, because I've got an upstairs neighbour who has hardwood floors, and they're actually really good, but occasionally they started learning piano in lockdown, and that's been fine because they use headphones, but they got a pedal. And I kept hearing a thud at weird intermissions, and I had to text her and go, is everything all right? And she was like, oh, I'm playing piano. And I was like, because there's a thud. And she was like, oh, it's the pedal. She got a mat for it, and that was it. There's never been an issue since. But like, it is a thing. We live quite close to each other.
Yes.
Now, near us, there is a garden centre. Until like 1 a.m. or 2, there was very heavy music. I think you might have been in Australia when it happened, but I reckon this street would have been able to hear it. It was so loud, this bass, and I thought someone, like a neighbour, was having a party.
Yes.
But then when I poked my head out, I was like, it's not a direct neighbour. And I was like, maybe it's the pub. There's a pub on the corner, but it's rare for them to...
Was it a garden centre disco?
Thing. Found out, right, from the WhatsApp, from the neighbourhood WhatsApp, the company Heinz, had hired a company to put on their corporate event at the garden centre.
They're our major sponsor, Heinz Soup.
And I think they're saying it's not our fault, it's the company we hired to put on the event. But they're putting on a corporate event, and they're like, oh, we'll do it at the garden centre because it's, like Heinz tomato soup, and like, it's kind of got that vibe. And then that events company were like, oh yeah, we'll do a rave. A rave at the garden centre. And it was like the noise, I don't think they call the noise police, but whoever it is was called in, and they actually showed up apparently. And that's why it ended up stopping. But it was like well past 1 a.m.
That's the last thing I would have guessed is a Heinz rave. That's absolutely extraordinary. Well, this is just an example of the kind of noise that you experience in London and or New York. And my feeling is very much, if you live in a basement flat, you will hear the people upstairs. And I lived in a basement flat. I heard the people upstairs. I just learned to tune it out. I am on Carrie's side of this. I think if you're walking in heels and you don't have rugs, that is a bit rude.
Yeah.
But can I ask you this? Who walks in heels at home? I can't wait to get my heels off if I'm wearing heels.
This is right. This is why I'm not on Carrie's side, because I'm leaning away from the mic. Who wears their shoes like that? Like, who wears their, like, where's her designer shoe rack by the door?
Yeah.
Like, Deborah, you have a lovely place. You've got hardwood floors. I take my shoes off when I arrive because I don't want to scratch your floors up, and I don't want to get like muck on your lovely rugs.
I mean, some people wear their shoes in, but to be wandering around all day in your heels, what's that doing to you? I mean, there was a plot, I think, in season 1 where she actually had to have an operation and she couldn't wear high heels, which, I mean, presumably came in part from wearing high heels too much. I just can't wait to get them off.
I want to ask.
She's so light, I suppose.
I want to ask the listeners. I don't know if you have a poll or whether you just ask them to Instagram or tweet or whatever. I want to know from the listeners: does anyone wear heels all day in their house?
If you do,
I don't know anyone who does.
At guiltyfeminist@gmail.com and say, yes, I'm a Carrie. I wear my heels.
Create a poll
all the time.
Producer Tom, create a poll and put it in the show notes.
Or we could put it on Instagram. We could put a poll on Instagram.
Yes, yeah, do that.
Who wears their shoes all the time? Inside. I can't wait to get my heels off. But I do know if you're getting ready.
And heels specifically as well.
If you're getting ready to go out, I when our neighbours complained, I remember finding it quite annoying that I had to carry my heels downstairs, put them on, and then go, do these work? How does this outfit look by the door? I liked being able to wander around in my heels if I was going out, but coming home and wearing heels the whole time is actual madness.
Through the door, straight off.
Absolutely. Can't wait to get them off. But I liked the beginning because I thought it was really on brand for Carrie.
Yes.
She loves strutting around in her heels. She is a selfish person.
Yes.
She is to the extent where this is the most classic Carrie Bradshaw thing ever. She's at brunch with the girls and she goes, oh, I've got this really annoying neighbour downstairs. And Miranda goes, I've got an annoying neighbour too, who plays heavy metal all the time. And she goes, what has that got to do with me?
Yeah.
And I was just like, she's your friend. And coincidence, we've both got annoying neighbours at the moment.
Yeah.
But the fact that Carrie would go, sorry, I don't understand how that's
Yeah,
about me. I'm like, that is so Carrie Bradshaw. Sorry. Because normally she turns the conversation. If someone's talking about their boyfriend, she goes, well, that's like me and Big. I mean, she's always done that.
Yeah.
But that was the most blatant one. I'm sorry, I failed to understand how this is all about me now. And she goes, well, I'm just saying it's the same. Like, I'm on your side. Neighbours are the worst.
Yeah.
We then get to Miranda and Carrie moving in together. What did you think about that plot line?
I'm glad that they did something because
we've been asking.
Since she was like, I'm living in Airbnb, I was like, Carrie is in a cavernous house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason for her to be in a house that big. And for her to go from like her nice little studio apartment to that's the biggest leap for me, that anyone would be like, this is, and then she was like, oh, I just forget I have so many rooms. This is a cost of living crisis, Carrie. Like, I mean, as someone who has been sharing a 1-bed flat with their ex-husband by turning the lounge into another bedroom until one of us can afford to move out, I'm sorry. I've never hated her more than when she said, I just forget I have bedrooms.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Yeah, I don't know if you need to bleep that, but I was so angry.
She said, oh, I still identify as someone who lives in a studio apartment. And I'm like, why? And I think she did buy the house because she thought she was getting back with Aidan and he's got various children. And she said, I want something big enough that your children can come and stay.
Mm.
But she's been both widowed and then effectively broken up with by a man she thought was going to come and live there and stay there with his children.
Mm.
Under those circumstances, I would say to my best and oldest mate, oh God, if you need someone to stay, I could use the company. That would be fun,
Yeah.
For a while, 6 months or something like that. You might not want that for your whole life, but come and stay for 6 months. It'll be fun. It'll be a nice transition. What did you think of how they were when they came together?
Well, first of all, I liked that Miranda first went, oh, you like your space. And then Carrie was like, no, it's fine. And she was like, okay, I like my space. Yes. I like that they pushed back a little bit.
Yes.
And it took that final, like, the neighbor with the knife for Miranda. I liked that. I thought that was good. Living together, that didn't make sense because when Miranda and Steve were living together, she was very on top of it, and she might have some mess and stuff, but she knows what it's like to share with someone who doesn't have the same living kind of standards.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot see Miranda as the sort of person who at no point would think, oh, that's their food, or this is your table and I've spread out over it.
But the fridge looked empty as well. If you've invited your friend to stay,
exactly,
don't you say, what do you have for breakfast? And then that friend says, oh, I'll get some groceries in. Or, you figure out groceries.
Yeah. That's the first thing you do, yeah.
But now, because in America they have DoorDash, but they've got Uber Eats and all of those sorts of apps, you would just, if you woke up and there was only one yogurt, you would either walk down to the shop or you would go on an app and you'd go, right, that's the kind of yogurt she's got. I'll get a few of those in and some bananas and things like that. Who invites their best friend to stay and then has one banana and one yogurt and then complains when I just would never in a million years go, have you taken the last yogurt? If you'd called me and said, I actually do have to move out of my apartment really quickly, my flat, can I come and stay with you? And then I saw that you were eating the yogurt I'd planned to eat for breakfast. In a million years, I wouldn't say to you, are you eating my yogurt?
Well, it wouldn't get to that stage.
I would just get more.
If it was the other way around, if you were staying with me, I would say, the first thing I would say is, I've only got a yogurt and a banana in the fridge. You can have them for breakfast if you want. Because that's the host thing to do. Yeah. Oh, I haven't had time to pick up stuff. There's a yogurt and a banana. I would offer them. And if you went, oh, no, I'll sort myself out. I go, oh, sorry. Okay, right. Well, I'll have that for breakfast, but I'll get something in later.
There is DoorDash, there's Postmates, there's all sorts of apps there. They are wealthy people. Wouldn't they just go on and go, I'll have a bunch of bananas, a bunch of yogurts, and a bunch, because that's that problem fixed.
Yeah.
Because they acted like that was an insurmountable problem that they weren't getting on. I also do not really believe that Miranda would spread out her stuff on this precious table that was this romantic gift from Aidan that was off first dibs, so must cost thousands.
She was there when it arrived. She understands.
She knows what a big deal it is. I think Miranda would bring a desk and work in her room. Because if someone's offering you a lovely room, you would bring a desk or you would get yourself a desk and you would work in your room. This is huge rooms.
Yeah.
What you wouldn't
work in
do
bed.
is put open Coca-Cola on this thing. But even then, it's a glass top table. It doesn't matter if it gets Coke on it. You just wipe it off. It's glass. It's not teak.
It also still bugs me, the thing that you raised where in a previous episode where I was like, oh yeah, which was that Aidan's a carpenter.
Yes.
And if Carrie wants it to be a mutual house.
Yeah.
Like he's given it a thumbs down.
Yeah.
So
he knows about furniture. It's the most odd thing.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think she should be furnishing the house with Aidan in mind. I think that is
no, not anymore,
codependent
certainly.
thinking. But I do think that it's ridiculous that she would go, what about this? And then be surprised that he doesn't like it. Dude, you've been with, you know what he likes. You know his style.
He likes really wooden, dark wood furniture.
And that table in that house?
It doesn't look right. No, I don't like it at all.
Neither does Carrie.
Such an odd choice. But anyway, he got it for her because she liked it and all of that. Fine. I just don't believe that. I don't believe Miranda would work at it without saying, is it okay to work at your fancy new table?
Absolutely.
I just don't buy it for a dollar. But also, all of the problems they were having were fixable problems by getting in some groceries and Miranda getting a desk in her room.
Yeah.
The naked walk was a very odd one for me because what do we know about Miranda? When Aidan came to get her, she was devastated she was naked. To be fair, that's different. That's a man
friend's
coming in.
Boyfriend,
a friend's boyfriend. That is different. But also, there was a chap who had the door open when he went to the loo and all of that. I just don't see her as that character that just wanders around naked in someone else's house.
I could definitely see her as someone who wanders around naked in her own house. I don't think she has an issue with nudity. When there's this in Sex and the City, there's the episode at the spa where they're in the sauna and
Charlotte
they're all
doesn't
happy
want
to
get
sit
naked.
and Charlotte
You're right.
won't. So
Good Easter egg.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't think
take it
Miranda's
back.
funny about nudity. And to be fair, I've been dating women recently and I do think I'm a lot less bothered by people seeing me nude in changing rooms and things now because I'm like, I've been around. It's weird. I would be around naked men, fine. But then in women's changing rooms, I'd be like, oh, I feel judged or whatever. And then now that I've been with women with very different bodies and realized, oh, yeah, we're all different. I've been way more fine with so I can understand. I can see it as a character thing.
So you think that since Miranda has found herself sexually with her queer sexual orientation, she's become more chill? I think that's
I don't think it's
fair.
a sexual thing walking around nude, but I can understand her being more comfortable in her body,
more comfortable in her own skin.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'll buy all of that. Great. Well sold, Bec.
Thank you.
I take back my original objections. But I still think, again, if I was staying with you and I did a dash to the loo and then saw you in the hallway and I was completely naked except for socks, I would go, oh!
There'd be some reaction.
I'd be like...
There would be some reaction.
I'd be like, I'd laugh. I'd kind of go, oh, sorry, naked. And I would just sort of dash off or something. Or
yes, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you were like, oh... I wouldn't go...
I wouldn't act like we've been living together for ages.
And that it's absolutely normal for us both to walk around naked.
Absolutely. There would still be an element of,
response.
oh, I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
And I understand that you weren't expecting this.
Whereas she just stood there going, we came back, blah, blah, blah.
That's true.
And then Carrie walked into
That's
a wall
true.
and the next day she went, what was that about? You've seen me naked before. Sure, but probably when you've both been changing in the same room before you've gone swimming or something.
Yeah.
When you're both expecting to see each other naked.
That's it. The context was ignored.
Exactly.
They've been fine naked before, and the context has been left out of that scene.
Yes, where there's a natural, oh, hello, I'm wandering around your house naked.
Because even if she wasn't naked, Carrie was not expecting to see her.
Yes.
And if someone goes, oh, in the middle of the night, you automatically go, oh,
yes.
Because you realise you've startled someone and you startle yourself. There's a reaction, regardless of what you're wearing.
It's true.
And I wanted to see at least that.
Yeah, because Carrie's not used to living with anyone. So she was like, oh, someone. Oh yeah,
and she
of
thought
course,
Miranda was
Miranda's
staying
here.
out. Yeah.
Exactly. So it just makes sense. So I don't think any of the things that happened, except maybe her mopping up coke with her scarf that she was.
Oh yeah,
lent.
I realized I
Also
I was going to walk in wearing this scarf
Oh
as a joke today.
yes.
It's not a nice one. It's a
I'll mop up some coke with it immediately.
thing that came free with something. I know you should. I don't know if it could mop anything up. By the way, this is purest polyester.
It no, I think
That
I wouldn't mop up coke with it just because I'd grab a tea towel. I just would instinctively not mop something up with your clothes, even if you said it's no big deal.
I'd be like, mop something. I think this has so much plastic in this fabric, it would repel the coke. I think it would push the coke off the table. It wouldn't soak it up.
Well, I did find that whole situation kind of contrived and manufactured. To play rewriter's room, what things would mean you'd think, oh, this isn't working? Because all these things are one-offs.
Yeah.
You can, you just be more considerate. You just go, well, clearly she's not up for sharing her food, even though she's now apparently the richest woman in New York. I'll get some groceries in. I won't take her last Coke. I'll just go down to the shop or I'll order something in. You would think that you would just go, oh, she's a bit funny about that. I'll change my behavior, and vice versa. What things would you get? And I'm just trying to think what would make it untenable.
I tell you exactly what it would be. It would be that neither of them can get any work done because they keep talking.
I believe that.
Because
I absolutely believe that.
That's exactly the problem I have when if someone comes to stay and we both have work. In fact, I stayed with a friend in Manchester and we both had a ton of work to do, but we also had so much to catch up on.
Yes.
And so we just kept talking.
They distract each other. They're both, Carrie's trying to write her novel, Miranda's got briefs to get in for important human rights reasons. So Carrie's going, should we just have a little, I've just made us some cosmopolitans. Like it's like
a little
much
holiday
better
party
pitch.
thing.
It's remember in the 90s when we did this, remember, that they last, we'd never heard they'd lived before together.
It's sleepover
surprising.
style.
But
then
sleepover.
They're not getting any.
And then she's drunk too much and she's fallen asleep over her briefs. And she's thought, oh, God. And then the next day, Carrie's going, this neighbour downstairs, blah, 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 blah. And Miranda's like, I've just got to get this done. And Carrie's a bit offended, a bit, the way like, oh, sorry. But it just gets a bit tense because you feel a bit defensive if someone does that.
Yeah.
And that builds of we're having so much fun. So the first beat in the writer's room is they have so much fun. They're like 20-somethings again.
Yeah.
From before we even met them, because we don't remember them living together. There's no evidence of that. So this is clearly when they were really early 30s or late 20s that they lived together.
And what a great opportunity to have them not flashback. You wouldn't want a flashback episode, but what a great opportunity for them to reminisce over things that we remember from Sex and the City.
We remember, and things we've never seen. Things from finding out things from when they were in their late 20s.
Or getting closure on certain, like, you could tie up so many things. Like, oh, did you ever see Todd again? Was it Todd, was that the young guy?
Yes.
Did you ever see? Yeah, I did. Oh, do you know what? You never guess who I bumped into the other day.
Skipper.
Exactly. Anything that you've wanted to put into the script, but you haven't been able to because like of time constraints or budget constraints or whatever, have them talk through every plot that got turned down. Oh, do you remember when we had to fly, when we got those luxury flights to such and such, and then we did this? Yeah, it was a bit.
And have them gossip about Samantha. Have them say what they're worried about with Charlotte or whatever. But mostly a montage, really, of them having the greatest time ever and seeing them regress a bit, the way that you do with like university friends, where you end up drinking too much, and it's partly what my play's about. Never Have I Ever, that's on in Perth at the moment. Just a quick plug there for some Western Australians. The way that you can regress with people from whom there's a capsule of a certain age. Yeah. So as soon as they said, well, we lived together in the 90s, I kind of thought, maybe we're going to see something more of that. So I love that idea that they're having so much fun and we think, oh my God, this is going to work out. Miranda's going to stay there. And Carrie's saying to her, you should move in here.
Yes, that's what you need.
You should live here.
It goes a little too well.
So beat one is, what are we going to do with your room? I'm designing at the moment. I'm getting all this fabric. You've got to stay. This is the best time. Sisters will be the golden girls. Sisters doing it for themselves. Who needs men? Who needs partners? let's stay here. Look, I wouldn't even know you were here. You can be on a different floor from me or whatever. And then it's oh my God, she's still banging on about that neighbor.
I would have then, because she's like, my home's your home. So Miranda starts feeling a little bit more like she can stretch out. Then you can have the eating of the yogurt or whatever. Like then that's when, because as soon as someone goes, my home is your home, that's when you can start testing those boundaries.
That's when she bumps into a naked.
I reckon.
She goes, sorry, but I was in bed with somebody and then I popped out to the loo. That's what I would do in my home.
Exactly.
I wouldn't put a robe on if I was going from the bed to the loo back to the bed.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
Or Carrie can hear, like she brings Joy back there and Carrie can hear it. And she's like, I forgot that this is the bad thing about having housemates. Or I think Miranda, she's a problem solver. So I think Miranda, out of good faith, would get Carrie a bunch of rugs or runners that are not in Carrie's taste. But she was like, because she likes the writer. She wants things to be okay with him. And Carrie keeps complaining about him. I've solved the problem. Yeah. And she's like, you can get rid of them.
My contribution to the flat.
Yes.
And she thinks they're really nice. She's I think they're your style. And she's like, they're not. And we know how weird Carrie's been about taking months to decorate this place and not having any furniture and not having any rugs. And she rushes it. She's like, this is my contribution. Like, you're having me stay here with paying no rent. I'm going to buy you some lovely rugs.
Yes, yeah.
But they're kind of IKEA or something that Miranda would get and sort of,
I think Miranda would actually splash out because she knows that Carrie has expensive taste. I think Miranda would splash out
wrong taste
and think that, and then be annoyed that Carrie's annoyed because she'd be like, I got this from like a designer. I went to an interior and they said this was, and I showed them everything that you like and they said it would go with this. And like, I've worked really hard to make sure you'd be happy with this.
And I can't return them there, that we've walked
on them or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. So those things, I think then, and that's, as a writer, it's a really good thing to play out, a beat where things go really well. And then because of that, then something goes really badly. So because we stay up all night talking and it was like old times and we're having the time of our life, but then it's Monday night, Carrie doesn't have to get up for a job, but Randa does.
Yeah.
So it's Monday night and she's like, I've got sangria. And she's like, oh, I've got to work in the morning. Just have one with me. Just have one with me. And then she does that Carrie thing of dominating the conversation with, banging on about the neighbor or, she clearly fancies him, but she's saying how awful he is or whatever it is. And Miranda's like, I've got to work. I've got to go to work. I've got a life. I can't be gossiping all the time. I can't be chatting all the time. I can't be having fun all the time. There is an absolute obvious tension there. And also, she's got a lover that she's really, really into. Yeah. And Carrie at the moment is feeling quite adrift that way because Aidan sends a table but can't come and see her or won't go on the phone with her or whatever. So you've got this tension of she's got nothing to do compared to, someone with a full-time job and a new lover.
That's it. And what I would love for the B plot with Charlotte is that she's going through her things, which I know you'll come to, but she thinks, I know I can't tell anyone, but Carrie and Miranda are my two oldest friends and I know I can trust them with this. But when she catches up with them, this is when they're in their honeymoon phase.
Oh, very good.
They're all they're like, laughing. And Charlotte starts to feel left out.
Yes.
So she's left out and she's going through this thing. She feels alone, which gives you more of a reason for her to like get closer to, I keep wanting to say LBW, which is like before Wicket.
It's actually LTW.
Yes.
But Lisa Todd Wexler, I think it is.
Yes, yeah.
But yes, LBW. That's a great idea for that plot because if she comes over and is sort of waiting for them to say what's wrong, even if she can't tell them everything, she wants to say, look, something's on my mind. And if they're in this girly honeymoon phase where they're reminiscing about the 90s and she feels like they're not making space for me or they don't really care about me or they're this tight little roommates of two, that brings back older dynamics in the friendship, I think, as well, where Charlotte often probably felt like the outsider because she was the conservative one who wanted to get married and wear pearls and didn't really fit in. That's a great idea. Overall, what did you think of the plot line of Charlotte and the
Harry?
Big worry she's got that she's not allowed to tell anyone?
Obviously, we've had, we've had plot lines with involving cancer before with Samantha, and having to see that character go through that.
And Steve had to have a testicle removed.
That's right. I'm, from a pure writing perspective, and because, there's so many opinions I have about this, but just in terms of, we always have people surviving it, and I think it's important to understand that not everybody survives it. So part of me is like, oh gosh, is this gonna be something that ends up being worse? He's right in that it does have the best survival rate of all. I think it's almost most of the cancers that has one of the highest survival rates.
Because they've just killed off Big, would they kill off Harry as well?
That's what that's the other thing I was thinking, is I would be surprised if they did that. And I think this is going to be more about how to manage it. Plus, I do know that sometimes people are a bit more, if something's caught early and doesn't require as much, treatment or anything like that. If it is we're from Australia. I know loads of people who've had skin cancer and had it removed, and they didn't have to undergo any treatment. It just, when it was removed, they managed to catch it all. It was fine. That's it. So I understand that people can be a bit like, oh yeah, it was cancerous, but it's gone, blah, blah, blah. But it's more about the psychological effect of having to understand that we're mortal and none of us are going to be here forever. And the impact of that. That's an interesting thing to see Charlotte wrestle with.
And I think it is interesting seeing Charlotte have a proper storyline, because she absolutely adores Harry, and she was just saying that was clearly planted, but she was just saying to Carrie slightly tactlessly, well, I can't imagine what it would be like not to have Harry there every living minute, waking up with him, relying on him, which is a very tactless thing to say to someone when she's just lost her husband, and also her boyfriend now isn't available. So it was clearly planted there as, and Carrie said, well, luckily you don't have to. But clearly that's why it was there, so that we know that Charlotte couldn't handle life without Harry. I mean, of course she could and she would, everyone does, but
that's the thing about writing, is that show don't tell. We know that Charlotte couldn't handle life without Harry. We don't need her to say it to her friend who is more that, who feels grieving, out of character
who's
for her.
Grieving twice. The old Sex and the City, which had stronger writing, I think is universally understood, she would have gone home to Harry and said, I don't know what I'd do without you.
Yes.
And that would have been the trigger of him going, oh, I need to tell you something.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. It's not a whole big thing.
And I think that would be interesting, because it means he was wrestling with whether to even worry her about it.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking, hopefully this should be quite simple, but he also knows he should tell her. But he also knows Charlotte well enough to know that she's really going to struggle to not tell other people.
Yes.
She cannot play chill. So it's believable that he wouldn't want to tell her. And at the same time, something would prompt him to go, I do need, you would be very upset if this got worse and I hadn't told you at the beginning,
I do like that she's being a little bit more forthright with her children.
Oh, yeah.
They speak so horribly to her.
It should not have to take a cancer storyline for her to discipline her kids.
And yes.
Well, not even discipline, but just say, stop back-chatting to me.
Yeah, or stop being rude in a way that I wouldn't accept from any other person in my life.
Yeah.
If someone at the gallery spoke to her like that, or her friend spoke to her like that, it's not about even respect for a parent. It's just how you speak to other human beings. They're so rude to her, especially Lily.
Yes.
And so I was really pleased that she said, I'm afraid you will be going. And I don't want you saying anything negative to your father, which, again, if the kids were a bit smarter, they'd be like, why? What's going on? This is a bit weird. But they are quite narcissistic.
That's true.
And teenagers are, so whatever, their response is very much in the whatever, fine. But she is clearly in a deeply anxious state about anything bad happening to Harry, which I am. I feel like that was drawn quite well.
Yes.
That she was having these little mini meltdowns and no one else really understood why. And I liked the way that Lisa said, "Do you want to talk about this?" And she said no. And then Lisa just put her hand on her.
That was
a lovely moment.
That was honestly the first moment where I genuinely felt something for the characters.
Yeah.
This season. Where I actually went, oof.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about the show. And this is the thing about life, right? Nothing is truly good unless you have a point of truly bad to come from.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's why you can't be happy all the time. You have to allow sadness or anger or any other, as we refer to, negative emotions. They're not really, they're just not fun. They're not pleasant, but they're necessary, because it's like if you go on a roller coaster and it just goes at the same level the whole time, you get bored very easily. What's the point? Whereas, and I feel like that's what the show does. It's like a roller coaster that doesn't go up or down. It's so minor.
Yeah.
So it meant the world to have an oof moment.
More of a merry-go-round than a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So we've got this secret that Charlotte's carrying, and I do think. What do you think about a partner asking you to hold on to a secret like this? And I'm asking this because I think it's interesting. I don't like it when people can't tell the difference between the point of a story and the plot of a story. Stories have to have plots of people making bad decisions. Stories are always about things you wouldn't want to have happen to you. There are no stories that don't involve things you wouldn't want to have happen to you. And sometimes I see people online expecting characters to be beyond reproach, and that is not how stories work.
No.
So I'm not asking, is Harry wrong to ask her? I'm asking, how do you feel about a partner saying you can't tell anyone this?
I think that, look, I'm very much my body, my choice. So like if I had something that I was going through that I wanted to share with someone close to me, but I didn't want everyone else to know yet, I think it's absolutely within Harry's right to say, I don't want you to tell anyone. However, I would also need to truly think about the burden that places on that person and understand that might be really hard for them to hold on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So it would I probably wouldn't say don't tell anyone, but I'd be like, if I didn't want the kids to know, and that's his choice, like I'm not going to say what the right or wrong choice is in that scenario, but if I didn't want the kids to know, I would say, look, I don't want you to wait. If you do need to talk about it, let me know who you're, like, just, if you're going to talk about it, could you talk about it with someone you really trust and you know it's not going to get back or get out or anyone else is going to find out? Like, there needs to be an understanding.
I would agree. If she doesn't have a therapist,
right,
I would say, look, could you not tell the Wexlers because they're in our lives so much? But if you need to tell Carrie and have a chat,
exactly,
like just tell her not to tell anyone.
Or could you not tell these friends because they're gossips?
Yeah, but you're going to need to talk to someone about it. You're clearly exercised about it. I agree. I think if my husband had cancer and said I don't want anyone to know at all, I think I would say to him, can we agree on someone I can talk to about this, because I just can't completely keep it to myself. You know what I'm like.
And also because I think I know what I'm like. I suspect you might be similar. I process things out loud. I talk things out.
Yeah,
100%. And quite often I will have conversations with myself when I'm alone because it helps me figure things out.
And you can't say to your partner, oh, this is all about me. To them, you have to just be supportive and make it all about them.
Yeah.
But the bit that is about you, you need to share with someone else.
Otherwise, exactly.
The bit like, I'm scared, I'm worried, all of that, you can't put that on the partner who has the diagnosis. You've got to take that somewhere else. So I would have to say, where else can I take this? Or I'd have to get a therapist, because if I didn't have one at the time. Agreed.
Yes.
Absolutely agreed. The Wexlers' children discuss, so this is a sidebar, but bloody hell, What was that all about? Were they like, oh, this is the best croissant I've had? They don't have British accents, but it sounds like they should. This is the best croissant I've had since we were at the Georges V Hotel or Hotel Henri or whatever he said. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're a child.
It's very, again, it's very show don't, like, they're not doing the show don't tell, because what they're trying to point out is that he wants to be relatable for the campaign.
He wants to be a regular Joe eating a hot dog, but his children are going, oh, what a marvellous croque monsieur.
Yes, exactly. And so they're trying to make that very obvious. But hey, writers, here's the thing. You don't have to make it obvious. We've seen their home.
Yeah.
We know what the kids' school is like. We know what their clothing is like. You're glamping on a part of New York that has like a full view of the city from... We know that you're well off. You don't need to have the children saying something to make it clear. Everything is already clear. So it feels clunky and unnecessary.
If you do want to have it, I think you've got to find a thing a child would say that still lets them be children. That's clearly something they want that's out of the range of other children, or they're doing a charity run for other kids, or that's something that I buy, because I just think, which children suddenly, we've never seen them talk like this before.
I think it was meant to be comedic. I think it was meant to be because he's talking about wanting to be relatable, and they were trying to show the contrast of their glamping and the kids are talking like this. But it was clunky because it felt it was for the sake of comedy, and therefore it didn't sit with what we actually know how kids talk,
are,
no matter how privileged you are.
But I've never seen these kids be like this before.
No, that's
they
the thing.
Suddenly, like, Wikipedia is not a primary source. Mummy
Now,
says.
I will say,
Like,
I
what?
do think she would say that because Lisa is a documentary maker. Her whole thing is research,
Yes.
and trying to get the facts straight. And as a parent, I know, like, even like AI, with all AI and everything, I know so many parents and teachers talking about AI at the moment, and people using that to fill in, to do their
Right.
essays and everything. So I can understand that they would have had that conversation, and I can understand that that is something that she would parrot because her mum said it.
The thing of just, what's Governor's Island? I think they're not doing an academic essay on it. I mean, but you're right. Kids sometimes parrot stuff back and say the thing that they thought they were going to say. I know what you're saying, and that's clearly what was going on. But I just found it really clunkerama. I was
It's
just
very
like,
clunky.
what the hell is this? Like,
Yeah.
suddenly these children are not children.
Mm-hmm.
They're like really priggish, absurdly like time capsuled wealthy children. But that is clearly what it is. It's the idea is, he's trying to pretend he's this, this down to earth guy.
That's my issue with the show, is there's too many characters now.
Yeah.
And they don't have time to give them.
Really explore.
So the kids don't get to be three-dimensional characters who then you can write more nuanced comedy lines for. They just serve as a purpose to help push the plot line along.
Yes. In a slightly absurd way sometimes. What did you think of the Wexlers? Again, it was only really a snippet because there wasn't a lot of time, but she's got this hot editor, and she admits she's got a crush on him. And Bill is a suspicious man now. He thinks, well, hold on, you've hired the hottest guy in the world. Not sure how I feel about this, and you're taking selfies with him. Did you enjoy this plot line?
I actually do like the plot line. I think it is like, I actually think that they did quite well with it in terms of, he sees the selfie, so he's like, who's this guy? And then she's like, well, that's, like, I think it's well, because it's not her being like panicking that he's seen this selfie, because you can have a crush on someone and it not actually be a threat or mean anything. So she knows it's nothing to worry about. She's got nothing to hide. She doesn't need to feel ashamed or anything. But his reaction shows, he's not as confident or strong. I do think because he does have these moments where he's such a strong, confident person, And yet he has these moments where he'll call her when he knows she's in a busy meeting and say, am I cool? Like, he's a little bit needy.
He's a little bit nerdy as well. He's
Yeah.
needy and nerdy.
So it is, I can believe him being a bit like,
oh, hold
who's
on.
this guy?
Wait up. And I love Marion. This really funny moment.
Marion has good real chemistry.
Yeah. And I don't know who's writing his dialogue or if it's just whoever wrote the script this week, but I feel like there was some real play with him, like old school Sex and the City play, where he's on the plane and he's teasing her about needing to get off the plane because she's got to go glamping, and he's teasing her in front of people.
Yes.
And it's really sassy and really funny.
Again,
and then
not
she
flying economy. I don't understand. Like,
oh, it's a short haul. Sometimes there is only economy on those.
Right. And the thing is, I'm a firm flyer of economy, but it was one of those things that's bugged me this season.
I think Atlantic City to there, it's sort
Sure.
of probably not that many hours. I don't know. You're right. I don't know. They presumably would be in business, but documentaries, if it's on the business, not necessarily.
True.
But I liked that. She called him Marion as she was getting off. And a guy looked at him and he said, it's a guy's name too.
Yeah.
And then he looks at this other young, like teenage kid and he goes, it's a guy's name, Chalamet.
Yeah.
And it was just funny.
It's
it was
a good
just,
comedy bit.
he's good.
His charisma is very strong.
God, he's such a charismatic man.
About time too.
Yes, he's a hot man. And last week, Alison Spittle was saying that she felt Lisa Todd Wexler needed to be baby girled.
Now, I haven't seen Baby
Outrageous.
Girl, so I didn't understand the reference.
It was
I
such
know
an
you were very upset about it, but that's all.
I was not. I was shocked in a funny way. Baby Girl is Nicole Kidman getting into this relationship with a younger man who dominates her, although the sex is a bit nebulous. It's all just a bit vanilla to me.
Right.
But the idea is he's controlling her, telling her what to do, calling her baby girl.
Right.
And maybe this is the opportunity. She's going to get into some sassy, kinky, chatty scenario. I don't know what's going to be kinky.
Do you know what? They have been so vanilla with the choices that they make in this show. I don't think this is going to go any further.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I think she's going to end up being in a moment with him where they could kiss and she has to pull back and then she has to tell Bill. That's what I think.
Now, I
it's going
think
to be
if
the
this
most
was old
obvious
Sex
thing.
in the City, they would do that.
I think
Because that's
what's gonna happen.
interesting. But I think in this, it'll go as far as, and then she'll find out he has a girlfriend, and then her husband will be like, say something jealous, and she'll go, or he'll meet the girlfriend and go, oh, I'm fine with this, and that's it.
I will put a tenner on it being they get into a situation where they nearly kiss. If it turns out he's gay or there's no threat, I will be annoyed that they've led us down in a series of garden paths.
I'm going to take that bet purely because I win either way. Because I want there to be some tension. I want something to happen in this show.
All right. You're going to have to buy me lunch for a tenner if it works out.
I'll get you a yogurt and a banana.
Quick question. Thank you. A yogurt and a banana, yes. And a Mexican Coke, please.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is, but I'll find one.
I want to stay a night at your place and I want to eat your last yogurt, your last banana, and your last Mexican Coke. I don't even know what a Mexican Coke is. So, can I ask, Seema, this is a very strange thing, Seema. She doesn't have enough money to go out on her own, but she was expecting to buy out her aging boss.
Yes.
Because they don't just give you the company, you've got to buy them out.
Yeah.
So that's expensive.
She must have been saving for it.
I would think. But he said, have you got enough money to buy me out? And she said, well, not yet. I didn't know you were going to retire yet. But you don't just save that up in one go.
By the way, that actor is 80.
Is he really?
You know how he said he's 90 and she's like, what? I think they could have kept him at 80.
Oh,
they don't think they needed to make him 90. That's ridiculous.
80's old
80's
enough
still
to retire.
It's
still past the window to have that kind of level of hardcore full-time job. I hope never to retire, but my job is much more made up of things.
Exactly.
If it was a big office job and a big responsibility, I'm sure I would want to be out before 80. Can I ask, what is the Easter egg here? When Seema goes to ask for a bank loan, and is turned down.
Oh, Carrie asking for a loan for the flat.
Which she actually references. She says, I asked for a loan
That's
once
right.
and I was told I had no assets. Well, now she can kiss my assets.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a little bit tactless when your friend's saying,
Yeah.
you know. But there is an Easter egg within the show, even more than Carrie referencing it. What is that Easter egg?
Ooh.
It's between these two. It's something in the scene with Seema that directly references the time that Carrie asked for money and was turned down because she wasn't a desirable candidate.
Because I know Carrie Charlotte sold her ring so Carrie could borrow the money.
It was an episode called Ring a Ding Ding.
Yes.
It's a piece of casting.
Oh. It's not the same woman, is it?
It's the same actress.
No,
It's the
that's
same actress.
okay.
Her name's Stephanie Cannon.
That's great.
Stephanie Cannon, and she is in fact part of the canon, the Sex and the City canon. It's exactly the same woman.
That's fantastic.
And so when Carrie references it, it's this very knowing
I
nod
love that.
they've both been turned down by the same woman.
Great.
30 years apart or something.
Yeah. Okay, yep. I love that. More of this,
That
please.
woman is still in the same job, interestingly.
Yes, yeah.
Still disappointing women all over New York. I have a problem with this. I have a big problem with this. Do you remember Carrie's reaction when she couldn't buy her own flat to Charlotte?
Yes.
What was that reaction?
She expected her to offer.
She said she was angry. She said, I wouldn't have taken you up on it, but you could have offered and you were looking away from me. And Charlotte said, I don't mix business and friendship. And my father fell out with his friend Paul. And she said, we're not talking about your father and his friend Paul. We're talking about you and your friend and me. She now apparently has more money than God, Carrie.
Yeah.
And Seema's there. Do we think Carrie is going to offer to bankroll Seema's business and get involved in it or some way or invest in it?
I think it's believable that Carrie learnt a lesson after what happened with Charlotte.
But why? She paid the money back, apparently. We never saw her pay it back.
But they were very close, and it did involve having to have an awkward conversation. Seema and her haven't had as much time as friends. So I think, I've only offered to lend money to a friend once, and that was because I knew that they wouldn't take me up on it.
Oh,
but
wow.
I did trust them that they would pay me back. But because I trusted them that they would pay me back, they're also the sort of person who's like, no, this would not be a wise choice. So I've never, but then again, I've never been in debt either. I've never borrowed money from anyone else. That's why I have no assets.
Kiss my assets.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie said, when Miranda said, could Seema hook me up with an apartment? She says, I don't want to mix business and friendship. And I'm like, that's literally just asking one friend if she'll do her job for another. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
They've
agreed.
all done that for each other. Miranda always looks over their contracts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've bought art from Charlotte in the past. That is, Seema's unemployed. Seema helped Carrie get a flat. Why can't, I know they weren't friends then, that's how they became friends, but
also she's just recommending someone she knows who's good at a job.
Yeah.
If she didn't think that, because what you would be worried about in that situation, right, is that Seema might let Miranda down, or Miranda might let Seema down, and then there's tension, right? But Seema is a great real estate agent.
Yeah.
Miranda, okay,
is a reliable friend.
She's a reliable friend. She has nothing to worry about there.
I think that was very, very odd, especially as they had deliberately evoked that episode where she went round in a huff to Charlotte's place saying, you should have been there for me as a friend, even though it involved money, and then did take her up on it, took that ring money.
I think would make more sense is if we stuck with the thing where they are living together and they're like, actually, we should make this a more long-term thing, but then they're both starting to get on each other's nerves. They're sort of at that stage where this might not work, but they don't want to admit it. And then Seema comes in and she's complaining about not being able to find it, and she's like, ugh, and at the, I might as well just be freelance finding flats of this level and stuff. And I saw one the other day and it was this and and Miranda goes, oh,
I'll take that.
That sounds good.
And
she's
she realizes she
show me
can do it
photo.
off her own kitchen table.
Exactly. Yeah.
I am intrigued as to why Seema left, because she doesn't have enough money to rent a small office for 3 months. If you don't have that, you shouldn't leave your job. I don't know why she's done it. Or you just know
work from home.
You're gonna do it off your kitchen table. Why would you ever borrow money to rent an office?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. You do it off your kitchen table. You get your first sales. She doesn't need an office. She's got clients who she knows of old. She just puts the word out to all the clients.
Yeah.
And turns up in her chauffeur-driven car.
It's like they didn't go through the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
What did she do then? She couldn't go into the
home.
office.
You just work from home.
Yeah.
Her job is showing apartments.
Yeah, she's barely there anyway.
You certainly wouldn't borrow money for that.
And if you're paying for if your whole thing is, well, they need to see me come out of the fancy car with my driver, fine. Don't get an office. Work in your car.
Yeah. Or work at home and then get the driver to pick you up and just pay for the journeys. Yeah. It's a very odd thing. So that was evoked. What was the other episode, Easter egg wise, that was evoked this week? There was an actual episode title evoked.
Ooh.
And it's when they were saying you shouldn't wear your high heels, devil's advocate, maybe you shouldn't wear your high heels, it's not hygienic. And she says, devil wears Prada advocate, etc. And then her punchline is a woman's
right to shoes?
Yes, which is the name of an old episode where her shoes get lost.
That's right, yes.
And she ends up registering at Manolo Blahnik and making her friend buy the shoes back.
Great episode.
I am going to suggest that title, which was very clever the first time we saw it in the late 90s or early noughties,
has not aged well.
Differently in a post-Roe world when women are literally bleeding out on tables and cannot access abortion. I don't know that that's the right pun anymore. Much like Charlotte saying to Carrie, oh, well, I don't know what I'd do without my husband there every day. Yeah. Now yours is dead and your boyfriend can't see you.
It's a bit
tactless. Really, really tactless at the moment. I know it's a joke. I know it's a play on words. I know we equate it with Sex and the City, but I feel like they should write new puns. I'm not sure about that.
Well, look, you do the writer's room. Bring me in for the puns. You know that's my bag.
Well, before I move on to the writer's room, any other plot points you would like to explore this week, Bec Hill?
Yes, let's talk about the downstairs neighbour.
Oh, yes, the downstairs neighbour.
Because when he rocks up, he is giving pure Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice vibes.
Yeah,
he's giving real Mr. Darcy. And that is, again...
He's going to end up in the novel, isn't he?
I feel like Michael Patrick King got really into Bridgerton and is now like, oh, I want to put a sense of this in there. Like, I feel like that's why they keep going back to the historical period drama type thing. I think they're trying a little bit too hard to make him a Mr. Darcy character, like to the point that it feels like he's dropped in from a Richard Curtis film. Like, he's not believable. I don't believe that anyone would go to New York to write alone away from noise when they're not in London.
I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I have done a few writers' retreats where I've needed to get away from London because in London, I believe. No, in New York, specifically in New York, because what happens is in London, it's like, could you just meet quickly at 11 for a coffee? I know you're writing at the moment. I know you're writing a book, but if you could just pop and do this charity event, it's only half an hour. You can just come in, you just do your thing, you just leave. And it ends up being every day is disrupted. So I have a few times when I've had a big writing project on that's been paid, I have gone off to New York, got myself an Airbnb, and I've just 2 weeks put my head down and I get up every morning, I go to yoga, and then I just write all day until I'm absolutely maxed out. And then if I'm maxed out, instead of being somewhere in the country or something, which is what most people do for writers' retreats, I go, oh, I'll phone a friend and go out for a drink or go and see a show or something.
But that's the thing, right? I was waiting for that because you choose New York because it has options that New York can offer.
Yes.
Because you can go and do that. You've got that option.
When you need a bit of what I need is re-stimulation or regroup.
Yes.
I need to put something in. So I'll walk around a museum.
Yes.
And then my brain will get all fiery again and then I can write another chapter.
And if he said that, absolutely believable. But when he was like, I don't go out, I don't explore, I lock myself in and I write, and that's
true.
nothing.
Then
I was
you
like,
go to the
why are you in
country.
New York?
Then you go to the country. It
What's
makes
the
no
point?
sense.
Like, I don't know what he
'Cause
gets
York
from
is
being in that
noisy.
space.
New York is noisy. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. I do it because there's available yoga and exercise options.
This is it.
And when I'm maxed out, there's a nice cafe. There's a someone I know will come and meet me for a drink, or I'll go to a show and I'll re-stimulate.
Now, maybe they'll explain this later. I would believe it if this was a flat that he had bought in his earlier years, and
that's the other place he's got.
And when he and his ex-wife split, he got it. And he doesn't want to have to rent it out because he doesn't trust people to look after it. But he also, if he sells it, he has to give her half the earnings or something like that. So he's like refusing to, and he's like, I'm just going to use it half the year to write. That I can understand. But they've just given no reason. And it's
true.
It's very lazy, like a lot of the writing has been, unfortunately, in my opinion. I don't believe that Carrie didn't realize who he was when he said his name. She is a writer.
Oh, yes.
She reads. I feel like she would have come across if he was this famous.
Everyone else knows who he is. That's
exactly.
the thing.
I think it's interesting, but it is in keeping with her character that at no point when they met and she was like, I've lived here for 3 months. And he was like, oh, okay. I feel like most people would go, so what do you do? When he specifically said, I work at night. I have to sleep during the day. I would go, oh, what do you do? Because you think maybe he's a doctor, or maybe he's a nightclub owner, or maybe what does he do? What's his thing? She never asks.
So true.
But that is very Carrie as well.
Because if he was a surgeon who comes over and spends time in a New York hospital because he does a specialist kind of operation that he's needed for, then that's a very different proposition. You take your shoes off to, I'm a writer and I'm a bit of a night owl.
Yeah,
sort of
that's your choice.
More like, well, that's your choice, mate.
Yes, exactly.
It's true. You would ask.
And finally, this is the big point I wanted to make, because at the end, he explains how he is working on Margaret Thatcher's book, and it's the first time he's covered a woman in his biographies. As we know, LTW was not sure about hiring Marion because it's a documentary about women. I can't help but think that Michael Patrick King is a little bit sore about maybe some people pointing out that he's not amazing at writing women sometimes. And he is trying to put in these plot points to show sometimes men can write women and it's okay.
I see. Yes, very well. But the old Sex and the City, I think he was good at writing women. I think he has become bad at writing women. The movies were like,
he's phoning it in.
Oh my God. I think sometimes people just go off the boil. They get too many yes men around them and too many people telling them they're a genius. And that whoever the checks and balances were in the old days maybe aren't there anymore. Yeah, that's actually a great point. But I'm looking forward to a bit of a romance, because last week I was complaining that she needs an alternative to Aidan.
Yes.
And now she's got one. Downstairs, I thought it was going to be the hot gardener. But now downstairs is this hot man who she has some tension with, some sexual heat with, and she's going to have to ring Aidan and say, look, thanks for the table, but someone else wants to fuck me on it.
Yeah. I also don't believe her putting out the fire with her high heels. I'm sorry, that is the least amount of surface area.
Well, also knowing how she feels about her heels.
Yes, exactly.
She was annoyed that Miranda mopped up some coke with a scarf that she said she got at a street sale. So I am very, very surprised that she stamped out fire with her Manolos. But it's an emergency. And I quite liked the symbolism of it, I will say. I liked that she was stomping around her apartment and then she stomped on the fire. I liked it. I liked the poetry of it. Any other plot points before I move on to the writer's room?
I was all for Seema and the gardener until I saw them talking to each other, and I thought it was the most chemistry-less scene.
Oh, damn.
And I thought, oh, this is when they had their first little, she's talking through the car, and I was like, ooh, okay, toy boy, fun, like this could be fun. And then them sharing the cigarette, I was like, I've never been drier in my life. So.
Oh my God. All right. This is my attempt this week to find a theme to find a voiceover and to find links between these stories, as I do every week now.
I'm so excited.
So this week, I think the theme is on top of each other.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
So I think her voiceover would go something like this. In a city of 8.5 million people, where even rich people live on top of each other, I couldn't help wondering, are we all just someone else's annoying neighbour? And from thin wood floors to heavy metal, Miranda was trying to work, but her noisy neighbour turned out to be a naked neighbour with a meat cleaver, so she moved in with me. And while Duncan Reeves was under my shoes, Miranda...
I'm going to pause for a second and just say, you write these as if they are the narrations that go between the scenes, aren't you? Because when you read them out on previous episodes, they sound like they're all one long chunk. And I'm like, I've never heard a long...
No, it's more these are the segues.
Tied to get segues. Lovely.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
If you're listening at home, these are my segues that I write into one paragraph as if this is the monologue. It would be stretched out over an episode, but we get the idea. And while Duncan Reeves was under my shoes, Miranda got under my feet. Meanwhile, Charlotte moved in with the Wexlers for the weekend into tents with thin walls so everyone could hear everyone else's arguing. And Seema desperately wanted an office so she could be someone else's annoying New York neighbour again, but she couldn't even afford thin walls and a noisy ceiling. While on the other side of the Atlantic, Samantha revealed that she'd like to be on top of Duncan Reeves, which made me wonder if the problem was that we were irritating neighbours and that which made me wonder if the problem was that Duncan and I were irritating neighbours and that maybe we could solve that by being on the same floor.
Oh. Goosebumps.
Thank you very much. It is really just me pastiching the old Sex and the City style, but I feel like on top of each other, Miranda's on top of her lover, and then the dogs start to bark, and they're off, and then they're on top of Carrie accidentally, and so on and so on. And I think that being under each other's feet, being on top of each other, I think is a really good theme. And it was really overt this week. Like other times I found something like the Pied Piper, which was never stated, but I think was there. But this week I was like, you've got a great theme. All you need to do is make a little bit more of it.
Well, I feel like they tried to do a theme with the idea of there being no sound, like no escape from sound, because you've got the floors, you've got the tents, heavy metal, you got the dogs whining when Miranda goes to Joy's. But this is what's missing from and just like that is nothing like this with someone tying it together.
Yeah.
And
it's just what we're used to from this show. And I think if you're not going to do that, that's a completely fair choice. But then I think it's got to be, then I think the dramatic purpose of each scene and sequence has to be a lot clearer. Samantha reappeared in a text. How do you feel about Samantha?
Okay. I always feel a bit weird when they try and include her. It feels so forced. But also, up until this point, we've seen Carrie very annoyingly sending texts via voice dictation.
Oh, yes.
I hate it. I don't know why they've had her doing that. Like, period, da-da-da-da-da, blah, 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 comma, blah, blah, blah. Like, what? Just send a voice note. Yeah. First of all, send a voice note. It is the year 2025. Send a voice note. Yeah. Why is she, if she's going to...
It's a classic for Carrie because she is the original voiceover queen. She could do voice notes the whole time.
And if she wants to, she is a writer. So either write or send a voice note.
Well, you can't get a voice note from Samantha, though, because that would require Kim Cattrall to be paid $1 million.
Absolutely. But it was weird that they didn't have Carrie dictating her message back to Samantha because she's been
established that.
Yeah. Why is it different this time? I don't know.
It's just not clear. I think it might be time to let Samantha go. I think it just reminds us that we miss Samantha.
Yes.
And I can't help every time thinking of the feud with Kim Cattrall. Every time I think of it.
All I want is the Samantha spin-off show.
I wonder if she'd
we
do
follow
that.
her and it's a whole new cast.
Samantha in London.
Yeah.
Like Emily in Paris.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. Samantha in London is the Emily in Paris that we deserve. Because, look, you know my feelings. And I have covered 4 seasons of Emily in Paris on my own Hate Watch podcast, Enemy in Paris. I have feelings, very strong ones. It could have been brilliant. It wasn't. It's basically it. Emily in Paris is, and just like that, for Gen Z and sort of millennials, and I hate it.
Right. But you hated enough to have a podcast about it.
I had to vent it somewhere. I can't just keep that in my head. I'm like Charlotte. Yeah, that's right.
Can we just talk a little bit about fashion this week? Anything stand out to you?
The shoes at the beginning, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I'm not even a shoe person. I own the same Timberland boots in loads of different colors. That is, I found some shoes that were comfortable, waterproof, and I like them. And then I was like, yep, these for all my shoes,
Done.
Thanks. But I did like looking at her shoes. I thought they're beautiful. And the little hint of all the frocks that she was wearing.
Yes.
Also, did you see the little callback to her heels with the sort of baseball socks and then the 3/4 length ruched cargos? Because she wears those, I think it's when she goes to the baseball. I might be wrong. She wears an outfit like that in Sex and the City. She's got like a little, which I would never normally say cute, but a little flat cap thing. And she wears
I remember that.
this. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if I'd do heels, socks, and 3/4 lengths.
Oh, yes.
But she pulls it off somehow.
She does.
And there's
This is the
just
great thing
from
about
the
Carrie.
shins down. Now I wonder, do you reckon that was Sarah Jessica Parker or they just got a model in for her?
I wondered if that was second unit. I
It'd be so
wondered if they
cheap.
got somebody else in to wander around in those shoes. But I suspect SJP likes dressing up and doing all that stuff. So, and I think they work them pretty hard from what I've heard on other shows. So I suspect it was her, but I wouldn't guarantee it. Go on.
Something I wanted to add, just hats. We haven't seen any hats since the Little Miss Muffet or the whatever it was, that one.
That madness.
There was an interview, and it's briefly escaped me, but there was an interview with the fashion designer who also does Emily in Paris and did Sex and the City.
Patricia Fielding.
That's the one. Thank you, Patricia Fielding. There was an interview with her, and because Emily wears dumb hats all the time. I have a whole thing about it. There was an interview with her where she said because they do more and more tight shots from shoulders up, the outfits get less and less airtime. And so hats are the only way she gets to show her creativity and choice.
That's interesting.
So that's why you get ridiculous hats in there, because that's Patricia Fielding being like, I want...
But Patricia Fielding doesn't do, and just like that, she left.
Does she not?
No, she did. She left. She didn't come back, rather than left, because she had Emily in Paris.
Oh.
So no, it's another team now, and a lot of people feel like it's more like costumes, whereas it was genuine fashion and street fashion and all sorts of stylish stuff and designer being put together with something vintage or something you could buy cheaply, and it was a genuine street fashion. And now it's more like costumery, which I understand that response. I do see what they're saying. I never look at that now and think, I want to put that together. I used to watch Sex and the City and think, wow, she's wearing a green dress with, red heels and a blue bag. Do you think I could pull that off? Could I do a version of that?
Yeah.
I used to think, could I do a little version of what she's doing? Could I pull this together with that? And it used to inspire me. Whereas now I just think,
we all paired a tutu skirt with a completely different type of top at some point, and then looked at a mirror and went,
this isn't working for me.
No.
I can't pull this off. And Carrie Bradshaw / SJP can just pull stuff off. The thing I liked this week that I thought was back to old Carrie, which I loved, she was wearing like a long white shirt dress.
Yes.
With over the top like a little black shift with white trim. And I thought it was so stylish. It was so truthful. It was so something I could see some fashionable New Yorker wearing. And I could see myself doing a version of it. And it was completely original. I'd never seen anything like it before. And really gorgeous. I like anything that looks like it could be a school uniform. So I was right up my street.
I liked Miranda's play suit.
Oh, the
boiler suit.
The canary yellow.
It was like bright orange, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Gold was really, I thought it was gold. The one that she paired it with the scarf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I also
noticed this season and I can't remember, maybe she also had it last season, but because in the first season she was going all silver. Her hair was very silver, and they've gone back to classic Miranda
red.
Ginger.
I think that was a comment about getting older, and then they've decided to take that comment back. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. Bec, do you have anything else to add before we go? Anything you're hoping to see coming up? I'm certainly now hoping to see Michael B. Handsome hit on Marion, hit on Lisa because I want my
Yes.
yogurt banana and Coke combination from you. I'm also hoping to see a red hot romance between Carrie and Duncan downstairs.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm hoping to see her have to make that decision to break things off with Aidan to be with the man that lives downstairs. But then, of course, in 6 months, he's going to go back to London.
I mean, but at least that's what I want to see is some plot.
I
would
love
like to see some plot, please. That would be nice. I can always tell if I'm enjoying a show based on how fidgety I get while it's on. Because if it's really engrossing me, I can just watch it and not feel the need to check my phone or anything. Now, if it's very, like, if I find it very, it makes me very anxious or something, I might be tempted to look at my phone because I'm uncomfortable, but I'm usually still drawn to wanting to sit through it, which is healthy.
Absolutely.
But I found myself so many times wandering off and doing tasks while watching it because I was like, I would suddenly get aware that time was passing. Okay, that's what happens during the show is I'm like, I could be doing something else while I'm doing this.
So what we're hoping for is that in the next few episodes, you are glued to the screen, not thinking about your phone, and that there's actual chewy plot.
Yes.
All right. We're hoping for that too. Anything to plug, Bec?
Yes. If anyone wants to go through a back catalogue of a show, Enemy in Paris, 4 seasons there. I also do an active podcast called A Problem Squared with a mathematician YouTuber called Matt Parker. I understand that the Venn diagram of people hate watching and just like that, who might be interested in learning about the way that maths applies to everyday problems might not be huge, but I'm not going to discount it.
Not going to discount
now,
that.
I am not the person who is interested in maths, by the way. I need to make that clear. I am the person who loves and just like that. But Matt is very good at explaining things in a very entertaining way. And if I can't understand it, then the show is pointless. So it's all about me trying to understand how it works. And then I solve dumb problems, which don't involve Matt.
And what's that show called?
A Problem Squared.
A Problem Squared. So there's a Problem Squared. And if you are an Emily in Paris watcher, you might like Enemy in Paris.
Yeah. I'm also doing Edinburgh Fringe. I'm doing my first show since 2019.
Wonderful to hear. And what's that show called, Bec Hill?
It's called Guess Who's Bec? Bec Again. Bec Hill's Bec. Tell a Friend.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Anyone who's going up to Edinburgh, please check that out. Thank you so much, Bec. You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist Watchers, and just like that, with me, Deborah Frances-White, and my very special guest, Bec Hill. The producer for The Spontaneity Shop is Tom Selinsky. The Guilty Feminist is part of the Acast Creator Network, and just like that is on Max in the United States and Sky Comedy and now in the UK. See you next week for episode 6.